The following program is brought to you by Mediacom and the Partnership for a Drug-Free Iowa. Welcome to a special edition of Drugs and Children Secrets for Parents, where we're going to talk about the power of the media. We're at BCLUW High School in Conrad, Iowa, talking to the entire student body about the media and how they may be influenced without even knowing it.
Every parent knows that teenagers are really special, that they don't think the same way we do. In fact, teenagers do all sorts of interesting things, and when you ask them, why did you do that crazy thing? They tell you the right answer. I don't know. That's the secret, actually. There's a lot going on in the human brain that we're not actually consciously aware of. We're going to talk about that tonight.
For the size of district that we are in a small rural area of Iowa, we provide a lot of opportunity for kids. And part of that begins with not just having a computer, but the idea about the curriculum and the content and the material and the teachers is what it boils down to. You can have a lot of money invested in a lot of computers and not have a great program, but what makes it is the kids' input and the influence and the things that they've done and the teachers and their leadership and how they've led things in their classroom. And it's made possibilities and doors open that we would have never had.
I think that a presentation like this has really opened the kids' eyes to at least be aware of those subliminal messages that are out there, ways that advertisers appeal to them, and maybe to think about things. Is this really what I want, or am I looking at this because, you know, they'll put new on packaging? It makes them look at it.
I think it's good information for students because technology is so widespread, whether it's laptops, you know, on their televisions, smartphones. But I don't think very often students really think about the different ways that, you know, media can influence them, you know, whether it be positive or negative. And so I think this type of program really does a lot to help students think about, you know, ways that media, way that advertisers may try and influence them that they probably haven't really thought about in the past.
I'm Peter, and to make one thing clear, and I think you'll figure it out by the time we're done, I'm an ad man. That's what I do. I'm a marketing expert. Dr. Gentile is a child psychologist that is an expert at how the things I do influence you. So I'm going to take you on a little tour of what's important to me as an ad man and why young adults and children are so important to my business. Now, we call this the power of the media. Realistically, I think I'd rather call it how to change the world. Because what we try to do is to change your behavior, your likes, your dislikes, in favor of the products that we're trying to market. Now, every day, and if I look around the room, I see a lot of different logos and branded material. Every day you're subjected to a lot of logos. Work with me on this one. Let's see how many of these you know. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Go through them as fast as you can. All right, beautiful. That's good. Now, the point is that I could have put 1,000 of those brands up there. Guess what? You would have known almost all of them. Matter of fact, you know your brands, and we'll find out why in a few minutes, better than you know almost anything we try and teach you in school. And there's a matter of relevance there. What we teach you is really, really important. But sometimes what you're learning has a lot to do with what you do with media and on the internet. We're going to talk about some of that stuff. Now, here are some ads from over 50 years ago. Those look pretty ridiculous, don't they? Pitney Bowes for a postage meter talked about being frustrated that you could possibly kill a woman because she didn't get the postage right. or starting drinking Coca-Cola when you're a little child. Those things look completely ridiculous to us now, don't they? I mean, that's the world that your parents and grandparents grew up in. A little bit different than the world that you live in today, like this. But I guarantee you, 30, 40, or 50 years from now, there'll be kids just like you looking and going, God, is that ridiculous? Something's really dramatically different here. What's the difference between those brands that we talk about that you're so familiar with and ads like this? It is a bunch of words. See, 50 years ago, we didn't have a lot of good brain science or child psychology. So we felt we had to tell a story. And quite frankly, people believed in the story they told. Now, we know that every one of those claims is untrue, right? But yet people believe them and bought the products. But then all of a sudden we learned things about how the brain works. And we realized that we don't have to appeal to the conscious mind. You don't have to look at something and say, start early, think light. You have to just be able to understand what that brand relates to. Every day, you're exposed to in excess of 3,000 brand images. That's impressions, things that burn Nike and Beats and all sorts of other things into your brain, for the most part without you even knowing. And today, the average young adult, like you guys, spends probably 50 hours a week on the internet, media, video games, social media. How many of you think you spend that much time a week? More. How many of you spend more than that in one weekend? How do you get more than 50 hours out of 2 24-hour days? But you get the point. And in fact, though, that's not a wrong answer, because you can do more than one thing at a time. Now, why is it so important today to understand the time that you spend on the media? When we look at consumer branding, when we look at that as advertisers, we want children by the age of 10 to like and love our stuff. Do you think they're qualified to weigh the values of it or how much it's better or worse than something else? We don't care. We've got 3,000 impressions a day that we can use to influence how you think. Now, how is this different today than those old ads? If we look at your week, unless things have changed, we have 168 hours in a week. Now, by the time you take out your sleep, your school, getting dressed, you roughly have 68 hours a week to play with. That's as a student. By the time you're a parent, with shopping, chores, doctors, you don't even have anywhere near that much. So what it amounts to is that in your life today, you have about 68 hours of fun time. Sports, friends, faith, homework, all sorts of cool stuff. But I'm an advertiser. What time do I want to get from you, right? I want to get as much of that as possible. Now, what am I getting? We've already looked at it. You're spending 50 hours a week. Look where I'm getting them. I'm taking away from your parents. I'm taking away from your homework. I'm taking away from your friends. That's our job as advertisers, to get your attention. And it's a big job, because when we look at what we're trying to do, we know that advertising is really powerful. From your point of view, you have to learn to be careful. Is anybody telling you to be careful? When you go to my websites or you go to places where I'm trying to get traffic from ads, I don't want you to be careful. I want you to go flying everywhere you possibly can and land places where I get your money, your attention, and your desires.
Scooby-Doo crackers.
Scooby-Doo? Do you like those?
Yeah.
Have you ever had them?
No.
How do you know you like them?
I like them so.
How many of you have bought something that you never tried, but you believed it was good because of advertising? We've all done that. That's my job. See, the more of you I can get to do that, the easier it is to get your money and your attention. Now, but there are certain things that happen that are really risky. We'll talk about why the brain is something that's important and why it's so important that we influence youth. You remember the pictures of the kids? That we wanted to get them influenced before they were even 10, let alone 12, 15, 16, or 18? Because your brain is use dependent. You are what you practice. Now, when I grew up, we used to say practice makes perfect. That's because our parents and our teachers only had us practice make us perfect. But practice Doesn't make perfect. Practice just makes you good at what you're practicing. If you watch a lot of TV, you're good at watching TV. That doesn't hold a candle to a lot of other things that are worth practicing. So your brain between the ages of 7 and 12 is almost done growing. That all that time I can get from you on the internet and video games and advertising and social media, I'm in there, you don't even know I'm there. And Dr. Gentile will show you how that works. And I can get you to like my stuff before you ever even question it. And the fact is, it's not just going to influence what you learn in math and science, it's going to influence your attitudes and behavior, whether that's how mean you get sometimes, or how much you crave owning or wanting to eat something.
I'm hungover from video games.
I OD'd on Facebook.
I'm hungover from video games.
Have any of you ever had that feeling? You ever OD'd on Facebook, ever got up in the morning and stayed up till 2 at night playing video games, didn't get your homework done? Never. Yeah, that's a good. You know, there's something called the third person effect that Dr. Gentile knows a lot more about than I do. And that talks about how you believe other people can be influenced easier than you can. And that's perfectly normal because you want to defend yourself. You always want to feel like you're right. But it makes you very susceptible to advertising people like me. See, one of the reasons that we're talking to you today is because we've realized that happiness isn't based on how many cell phones you have, how many computers you have, how many TVs you have. That the stuff is really not a component of happiness. As a matter of fact, for many of us adults, we're a little bit disappointed that we're not even giving you as good a world as we grew up in. So we know that happiness is conditional on one primary activity. That's how much time you spend connected to other people. Physical time, not texting, not Facebook. I'm not saying those things are bad. They're wonderful tools if they bring people together. But if they keep you apart, not a good thing. I talk about a hammer being a wonderful tool. You can build a house with it. We built America with hammers. But if you hit somebody in the head with it, it's not so good. So what happens is that, as an ad guy, I'm interested in how to get your attention, which, if we take a look, I don't know if many of you can see this graph, but if you try and think of something that looks strong, you see a sort of organized system like a family or a football team or a classroom or a high school. Those are strong, orderly sets. They keep you safe, protected, and give you the opportunity to explore with safety nets around you. But our modern world, where we're using the media to get your attention, we know we have to do something, and we call this a networked civilization. We know that we have to separate you a little bit from your family, from your teachers, from your friends, to get your individual attention so that we can influence your behavior. So in a sense, we're a predator. In the wilderness of life, we like to get things. We like to get our food, our meals, and stuff from you, the youngest market that we can get, because if we own you when you're young, we'll own you when you're old. Now, how many of you like to hunt or fish? How many like to shop? How many like to play sports? All those things require different levels of organization, don't you? And when you're doing them, do you feel like you're in control? When you're doing the stuff you love doing, whether you're hunting or fishing, you really feel powerful, don't you? Because you know what you want to accomplish and you know what you want to get. Now, how many of you actually think you go through life being the prey? Are people hunting you? No. Are people fishing for you? No. They're not buying and selling you. So for the most part, we get to feel like we're the top level predator in this world. The stronger our team, the stronger our class, the stronger our friends, the tougher we are. And that's exactly what I want you to think as an advertiser and a marketer. Because it's just at that time when you think you're strong that what I do becomes the most successful. You've heard about the movie The Wolf of Wall Street? Well, in advertising, we're the lions of Madison Avenue. That wasn't kidding. Ages 8 to 18, they're our prey. And what we do, whether it's ads on the internet or Facebook, or ads on television, or the games you like to play, it's about making you the prey.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more secrets about the media on Mediacom MC22.
Many teenagers don't understand the dangers and effects of marijuana use. Now it's time for Just the Facts, ma'am. An IQ is a score determined from standardized tests to determine intelligence. An IQ of 100 puts the average person in the 50th percentile of intelligence. Regular marijuana use during teenage years can cause a long-term 8-point drop in IQ. A loss of 8 IQ points drops them to the 29th percentile. For more information, go to drugfreeiowa.org.
When Noah's mom brought him to drug rehab, she never thought he'd end up back here again. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
I hope it helped. See you guys next week.
Ready for lunch, Noah?
Yeah, Mom.
If you or someone you know is recovering from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Children see magic in the world around them, and parents see the dangers.
There is hope for the future if we face it together.
Find out more about how you can protect your children from the risks of illegal drugs, prescription medications, and alcohol.
Go to drugfreeiowa.org.
Teaching students facts is not necessarily doing them the best favor. Teaching them how to find information, how to use that information, how to critically think through that information. Is this a good, reliable source? Is this, you know, and to question things. Does this really make sense with everything that I know? If it doesn't, can I find out more information? How do I go about that?
We do that third person phenomena that we talked about, where we tend to think of the rest of the world collectively, or how is this going to affect the masses? But even when we say that, oftentimes we're not really thinking, how's this affecting me, myself? And so as a teacher, to me, the thing I really took away is it is our responsibility to try and pass that information on to students.
So that's one of the things that I definitely took away, that the idea that we all have to balance our time and energy and how we focus that. And sometimes it deals with face-to-face conversations, sometimes it deals with the amount of time we're spending homework or at work or at school, and relationships are important, and also what is media and how much of an impact does it have on us when we're using technology.
Dr. Gentile is going to share with us now is a little bit about how you can better prepare yourself to use the wonderful technologies we have to negotiate the world, not so much as the victim, but more as the top level, let's say, manager of your environment that you can. Dr. Gentile?
Thank you, Peter. Well, good afternoon, Comets. Let me tell you a couple stories. These are going to sound strange at first, but I'll tie them together, I promise. In the wild, a turkey's natural enemy is the polecat. Polecat loves to eat nothing more than baby turkey chicks. So here's what a group of demented scientists did. They took a mother turkey and her clutch of chicks, put them in an enclosed caged area. Then they took a stuffed polecat and they shove it in through an opening in the cage. What do you think the mother turkey does? She attacks it. You're right. She beats her wings, she pecks at it, she makes as much noise as she can, trying to drive it away from her chicks. So the scientists take the stuffed polecat out, they repair it, they take a tape recorder and a tape recording of baby chick noises. They turn it on and they shove it back into the cage. So here you've got something that looks like a polecat but sounds like baby chicks. What do you think the mother turkey does now? She's not confused. She accepts it as one of her own and gathers it under her wing with the rest of her clutch of chicks. Second story. Here's the scenario. It's a long line down at the copying store. A lot of people waiting to use the Xerox machine. A guy goes right up to the front of the line. He says, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush?" What percentage of people do you think allow him to cut in front of the line? Do you think it's high? Oh, it is. It is, 94%. Day 2, same scenario. Long line of people, different people this time. He goes right up to the front of the line. He says, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?" What percentage of people do you think allow him to cut in front of the line today? Do you think it's dropped? It has, down to 60%. Day 3, same scenario. Long line, different people. Today he says, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make some copies?" Well, duh. What percentage of people do you think allow him to cut today? Do you think it's dropped again? No, it's right back up to 93%. Why? There's a magic word in here. All 3 days he started exactly the same way. He said, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?" On day 2, he stopped there. On day 1, he said, "Because I'm in a rush." On day 3, he said, "Because I have to make some copies." What's the magic word? Because. We are so used to, when we hear the word because, assuming we get a reason after it, that we don't even listen to the reason. We accept whatever comes after that word as a reason. Because I'm in a rush is a real reason. Because I have to is not a real reason. But we accept it as a reason at the same rate as the first one, if it follows the word because. The same way the mother turkey, when she hears baby chick noises, she accepts whatever it is as a baby chick, even if it looks like a polecat. Now, I'm not saying we're as dumb as turkeys, but what I am saying is if I knew these shortcuts your brain uses to make decisions, I could control your behavior completely. And you would never know I was doing it. You would think it was your own free will. Now, why is this? Well, the human brain actually evolved 2 different ways of thinking. 2 completely different ways. The first one is one we share with many other mammals. Called System 1, has other names as well. I'm not going to bore you with all those. But basically, we're very good at making fast, quick judgments. We see something and immediately we've already decided something about it. It's pretty much totally automatic. You don't really need to think about it. In fact, you kind of can't think about it. It just happens automatically. System 2 is something that humans have that almost no other animal does have, where we can actually carefully think and plan and go through all the steps to figure out whether something's a good idea or a bad idea, try to understand things. Now, what's interesting is we actually don't use System 2 very much. We use System 1 way more than System 2. And humans are fantastic at learning. All I have to do is show you something once, and you will have learned from it. You don't even have to try to learn. You're not sitting there, you didn't come in here today saying, "Boy, I'm going to work really hard to learn," right? But yet, at the end of this, you will know things you didn't know. You just have to see it once. You don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to get rewarded for it. You don't have to, you just have to see it, and you've learned something. And because humans are so good at this, that means you're super easy to trick. So let's see if I can trick you right now, okay? I'm in fact going to tell you. Now, those of you, the 9th graders, actually, you may have seen this trick because I came out here a couple of years ago and showed you this. So if you've seen it, just be quiet. Keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone. Let's see if the other people can get tricked by it. So, I'm going to try to trick you. You probably don't want to be tricked. I'm actually telling you the truth right now. I am going to trick you. I'm going to show you a list of words. I don't want you to write anything down. I don't want you to speak out loud. I just want you to watch that list and see if you can remember it all. See if you can remember all the words on the list. It's a pretty long list. You ready? All right, you saw that list, right? Now, if you know the trick, if you've seen this before, keep it to yourself. Let's see if other people get tricked by it. I want you to work together with other people. See if you can remember all of the words. So try and help each other's memory. All right, there were 19 words. Any of you think you remember all 19 of them? No? How many of you think you remember maybe at least half of them? Bunch of you, good. All right. Show of hands, how many of you remember seeing the word platypus? No one? Why not? It wasn't there. That's a really good reason. Okay. How many of you remember seeing the word sleep? That wasn't there either. What are ads trying to get us to do? To buy something, right? To change our behavior. To stop buying brand X, start buying brand Y. Well, changing human behavior is really hard. How many of you have little brothers or sisters? How many of you have little brothers or sisters that do something that routinely bothers you? How many of you have little brothers or sisters that do something that routinely bothers you and you've tried to get them to stop doing that thing? How successful have you been? Not very, yeah. Isn't that interesting? You're in the best position to actually influence them. You have a lifelong relationship with them. Hopefully a lot of the time it's a fairly positive relationship. You can ask them, why do you keep doing that thing? You can counter their reasons. You can provide alternatives. You can explain why your alternatives are superior to their reasons. You can threaten them. You can bribe them. And yet you still can't change their behavior, at least not once you walk out of the room, right? Well, how is it advertisers get to change your behavior? They don't have a long-term personal relationship with you. They don't get to threaten you. They don't get to bribe you. They don't get to counter your reasons, and yet they have a very powerful influence on behavior. How do you do that? Well, if I want to change your behavior, I can't just tell you to change your behavior. That will never work. If I want to change your behavior long-term, I need to get inside your head and make you want to change it yourself. In fact, if I'm really smart about it, I'll make you think it was your idea all along. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, right? Men, don't worry about it. Now, how do they get inside your head and make you think it's your idea? Well, there are two categories of psychological tricks that advertisers use. The first one's emotion, the second one's unconscious shortcuts. What's interesting about these is both of these are system one thinking, that automatic unconscious level of thinking. They're trying to work on this level so that you can't actually stop it because you're not thinking about it. It just happens automatically. And then when you're in the store, you say, I think I'm going to try this. Like that little girl. I'm going to like this. She's never tried it, but she thinks she's going to like it. And what's interesting is when Peter asked, how many of you bought something thinking that you would like it even though you didn't know? Very few of you put your hands up. That's really interesting because I know you all have. But you don't think you have because it was this automatic processing. It's not something you thought about. When you did it, you weren't thinking. And so you can't even remember doing it. Now, let me show you a non-traditional advertisement. This is one you had to call the Brown & Williamson Tobacco Corporation to get.
Hello, you've reached the Brown & Williamson Tobacco Corporation. If you're an adult smoker, 21 or older, welcome. If you're not 21 and not a smoker, please hang up now. Before any information is exchanged, there will be age verification. So again, if you're not 21, please hang up now. Good. Now that it's just us, there's something that we, Brown & Williamson Tobacco, would like to tell you. It may be a little soon, but, well, it just feels right. We, the Brown & Williamson Tobacco Corporation, are in love with you. Yep, you heard right. Brown & Williamson Tobacco is in love. We're a giant corporation, and you make us feel like a little kitten. Thank you, lover. By the way, the other tobacco companies hate you and think you're ugly. They told us so. Now, press 1 to be put on our mailing list. Press 2 to find a select store in your area. Or press 3 to speak with a service representative.
Now, I know what the trick is here, right? I know that Brown & Williamson Tobacco does not love me, and that the other tobacco companies hate me and think I'm ugly. Okay? I know that's a lie. But it's working on this emotional level. The brain actually has different parts of it, some of them much more evolutionarily advanced than the others. And the emotion part is a lower, more primitive part. It's a mammalian part of the brain. Do your dogs and cats have emotions? Yes, they do. But they don't think the same way you do. And so if I can actually get you to feel something, you stop thinking. You go on your emotional part of the brain, not on the more advanced cognitive part of the brain. And so I've heard this ad hundreds of times. And even though I know it's a lie, if you asked me to rate all the different tobacco companies in terms of how good they are, or whether they're good corporate citizens, I promise you I would rate Brown & Williamson #1, because for hundreds of times I've now heard them tell me they love me. And the fact that I know it's fake doesn't shield me from the effect. That's the power. Knowing that ads are fake does not stop them from working on you. So that's the emotional side. Let's look at the unconscious shortcut side. Lots of things that influence us on a daily basis are not at a conscious level. If you walk into a dark room in your house, what do? Turn on the light. Do you think about turning on the light? No, you just walk in and flick it, you don't even need to think about it. Why is it? Why don't you need to think about it? Well, it's because our brains take these shortcuts. Anything you do over and over again, you automatize to the point you no longer need to think about it. This brings up what you might consider a possible definition of intelligence. Intelligence is that thing you use when you don't know what to do. Intelligence is the thing you use when you don't know what to do. Most of the day, you actually know what to do, so you don't use your intelligence most of the day. Isn't that sad? But doesn't it explain a lot? Yeah, you just kind of go along with the crowd because you know you've done it 1,000 times before. So you don't really need your intelligence for most of the things you do. But what happens if you walk into the dark room and the light doesn't go on? That's when we bring our intelligence to bear. That's when something wrong with the switches, the power in the house, is light bulb burned out. That's when we use our intelligence. Now the point is, if I knew the shortcuts that are in your brain, like the turkey and the polecat, or the word because, I would have this powerful influence over you. And because it's working on this automatic level, you'll never know. So one of these shortcuts, and there are lots of them, about 132 of them. So I'm just going to show you one. But this is called the authority principle. The idea is that when someone looks like an authority, we just go along with them. But it doesn't have to be real authority. It can be. If the doctor tells you do this, don't do that, you probably should do it. If a policeman tells you don't stand here, go over there, you probably should. But it doesn't actually have to be a real doctor or a real policeman. This can be used to trick us. And let me show you that.
Hi, how are you? Oh, you're here to make a deposit? Yes. Well, the ATM's out of order. I can take your deposit.
This woman just gave $250 of her cold hard cash to a man she thought was a bank security guard. But she's just been ripped off. Seattle, Washington. In front of a Sea First Bank, we demonstrated a real con that's costing people across the country thousands of dollars. And the scam is simple. With the bank's permission, I set up shop with only a rented security guard outfit, a phony sign, and a clipboard.
Yeah, you just want to put this in? Yeah.
My bogus handwritten receipts were a dead giveaway, but that didn't stop dozens of customers from forking over their money.
How much you want to deposit? $179.94. Let me get your account number real quick. $572.96, Jerry. How much do you have in the account? Do you have enough in the account?
Oh yeah, there's $15,000 in the account.
How much? Lots. Okay, at least 15,000. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a pretty good account.
But that was just the beginning. Some customers gave me enough info to clean out their entire account, like their PIN numbers.
And what's your PIN code, Charles? 46. 46.
Even home addresses.
And give me your address too, if you would, real quick.
But with this customer, watch as I really hit pay dirt.
Have you got a large deposit?
Fairly large.
How much you got there roughly?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags. 4, 5, 6 bags.
And how much cash? How much cash?
How much cash I have is the slice idea. I don't know.
Is it over 20,000?
No, I imagine.
Yeah, over $20,000.
I imagine it is. Yeah.
Okay.
In less than 20 seconds, he handed me more than $20,000 in cash and checks. And of all the customers I tried to con, only one refused to hand over his cash.
Oh, wait, no, hold up. What you got? I don't know.
But I can give you a deposit slip. No problem. We'll get it in. What's your?
I think I'm gonna wait.
Huh?
But what about the other customers I'd conned out of more than 35 grand, not to mention PIN codes and other personal information?
You see the camera over there, Jerry? Yeah. I'm actually not a security guard. You just fell for an old con.
And what about Mr. Moneybags?
Well, you said you had a key and you was going to take me inside. That's what I thought.
Yeah, but I was going to run with the bag and get my accomplice to trip you or something.
Well, I know Kung Fu.
Oh, well, then I would have been dead meat. Pretty scary, isn't it?
Yes, it is very scary.
So the message is clear. As we move into the millennium, advancements in technology may eliminate old-fashioned holdups, but the con will always find a way.
We took in over $100,000 in less than 30 minutes.
Well, there's how you can fund your college education. I specifically love the guy with all the money who still is doing the third-person effect that Peter talked about, where we all think other people are trickable, but not ourselves. He's just been tricked, and yet he's still saying, oh no, I know Kung Fu, so somehow I'm not trickable. But he's already been tricked, and yet he still believes he's the exception. You all think you're the exception. We like to maintain this illusion that we do what we do because it's our free will, because we're the ones in charge. But that's not true most of the time, actually. So, give you a couple examples. Let's say you have a store at the mall, and it sounds like my mic has stopped. Are you guys getting any of that from that? All right. So let's say you've got a store at the mall, and you've got an entrance inside the mall, and you've got something you want people to spend a lot of money on. You want them to pay attention to and buy it. Do you put it right at the entrance of your store to the mall, or inside your store about 10 to 12 feet? What's your intuition tell you? How many of you think right at the opening to the mall? Not too many. How many of you think about 10 or 12 feet inside your store? Most of you. You guys are correct. In fact, that first 10 feet has a special name in marketing. It's called the Decompression Zone. Why? Because when you're walking in the mall, you're usually moving pretty quickly, right? You've got someplace, you've got a store you want to go to. And so when you get to the store, you're going to blast right past the opening of it, and you'll need to slow down a little bit. So that first 3 or 4 steps, you're not even noticing what's there. Not only that, if the store pays attention to the literature on this, the lighting will be different inside the store than in the mall. It might be brighter, it might be darker, it doesn't matter. It matters that it's different, because then when you cross into the light, your eyes need to change. It takes about a second for your eyes to change, to adjust to the new light. During that second, you can't see as well, so you slow down a bit. It takes, during that second, there's your 3 steps. So the store is actually manipulating your speed. Do you know that? No, but they're changing your behavior. Now, I've got you inside my store 10 or 12 feet. Should I put it to the right or to the left? How many of you think to the right? About half of you. How many think to the left? The other half? Good. It is to the right in this case. In fact, there's another law, rule for this. It's called the law of the invariant right. People will veer to the right as they walk in. About 90% of people. It's not like a hard turn, they don't do that. But they'll just kind of steer slightly off to the right. Why do you think that is? Right-handed, that's good, because 90% of people are right-handed. That's accurate, but in fact, that's not why. Why do you think it might be? Could be part of your brain, but it's something that's been trained into your brain. We think it's got to do with what side of the road we drive on. And so you get used to the dangers, something coming at you off to the left, so we actually kind of want to pull a little to the right to stay away from the danger. And we do that when we're walking as well. All right? Now, I've got you 10 or 12 feet inside my store. I've got it off to the right side. Let's say it's a type of cookie no one's ever had. How do I get you to pay attention to a brand you don't know anything about? Well, one way might be I could put it next to something else you already know about and like. Oreos. Everyone loves Oreos. Okay, so let's put the new cookie next to the Oreos. Put it to the left or to the right of the Oreos. How many of you think to the right? A little under half. How many of you think to the left? How many of you are done guessing because you don't know how I'm going to trick you next? It's to the right. You want to put it to the right. Why? Now we're back to your answer. Because 90% of people are right-handed. And so when they reach with their right hand, they're more likely to accidentally touch the thing that's to the right. They're reaching for Oreos, but there's something next to them. They might accidentally touch it. If you accidentally touch it, your odds of picking it up skyrocket. If you pick it up, the odds of you putting it in your cart skyrocket. There's a whole science of touch in stores, how to get you to touch things, because the minute you touch them, your relationship with them changes entirely. Now, do you realize that that's how you're being manipulated as you're in the store shopping? No, you buy what you want because you want it, right? Oh, no. Walmart does a brilliant thing. When you walk into Walmart, they have someone at the front door who greets you and gives you something. What do they give you? Sticker, a smile. Those are nice, but not important. What's the important thing they give you? They give you a cart. Why? Why is that so important? Studies have been done following people around to see how they shop. It's usually men who do this dumb thing, but both sexes do it somewhat. You can go into a store with a list of things you want to buy, right? And if you blast right past the carts and you don't pick up a cart, you just start loading up your arms. And when you get your arms full, what do you think most people do? They leave. They check out. They could go get a cart. They don't. Sometimes they do. But usually they just check out then. They haven't got everything on their list. But as soon as your arms are full, you leave. So from my standpoint as the store manager, I want you to spend a lot of money in my store. I want to make sure your arms never get full. So I've got to make sure you walk in with a cart right away. Now, it gets even worse than that. Let's say I want my sales to go up 30%. What's the single best investment I can make in my store? Bigger carts. I make 30% bigger carts, you spend 30% more. What the heck has the cart got to do with what you buy? You buy what you want because you want it, right? You buy it because you've got a list. You buy it because you're there, you've got a plan. No, you will fill the space. You are that dumb. Not just you, all the adults, every human is that dumb. Another one. Let's say I have a store where I sell shirts. Nice men's shirts. I put it in a high traffic area of the store on the right side. I do all those things right. I make it a nice sale. I put up a sign explaining the sale. And I count how many shirts I sell this week. I make one little change, and I count how many shirts are sold the next week. Now I keep it the same place, the same sale price, the same shirts. What I change is the table the shirts are on. I change it from being a stainless steel table to a wooden table. Sales go up 30%. Why? We actually don't know why. There are theories. It might be because the wood is warmer and that makes you want to touch the shirts. And again, there's this whole science of touch, how to get you to touch it, because the minute you touch it, your odds of buying it go way up. It might be because the wood reminds you more of home, so you want to take the shirts home with you. We actually don't know why this works. We don't care. We know that it works. We know that it changes your behavior. And why it works, we don't really care about. Now, you feeling kind of manipulated yet? You want a trick you can play on your teachers that uses these same types of tricks? Yeah? All right. Here is the best trick in the universe. Next time you're in a boring class, you take out a piece of paper and you mark it into a little grid. And you split the class into, say, 5 or 10-minute intervals. And for the first 5 minutes, anytime the teacher makes eye contact with you, you mark it down, so you're counting eye contact. And the first 5 minutes, you smile or you nod. What's going to happen? Well, my eye contact is going to go way up because you're reinforcing me for looking at you. After 5 minutes, turn it off. Just remain totally impassive. Don't smile, don't nod. What's going to happen? Well, my eye contact's going to go higher still as I try to get you re-engaged, and then it'll start dropping off. After 5 minutes, turn it back on again. Whew. Eye contact's going to go way up. And then 5 minutes later, turn it off. It'll go higher and then taper off. You'll be having a huge effect on how the teacher interacts with the room. I won't know what's happening. Not only that, and worse than that, when you see me, when you turn it off, you will watch me get physically upset as I try to get you re-engaged. I won't know why I'm upset. If you asked me, why am I, staring at this one part of the class so long, I wouldn't have an answer. And if I did, I would say it was my idea. Well, I just feel more comfortable lecturing like this. Is it really my? No, it's not. You are the one controlling it, but I can't even tell. Teachers, prepare yourselves for this one. Now that you know it, you might notice it. Now, sometimes this power can be used for real good. So let me tell you a story. In Mexico, in the 1970s, there was a terrible problem with adult illiteracy. Too many adults couldn't read. The Mexican government realized that they needed their adults reading, otherwise the economy wasn't going to grow. So they instituted what were at the times really innovative programs. They put adult literacy classrooms right in the workplace, for example, so you could go before work or on your lunch break or after work. They provided childcare in some cases. That's very important for low-skilled people to be able to go get additional training. They provided monetary incentives in some cases. That's usually a very powerful incentive for people. No one went. Okay, why not? Well, it wasn't cool to admit I can't read, right? No one wanted to be seen walking into that room. So the producer of the most popular soap opera in Mexico, Miguel Sabido, decided to try a little experiment. Here's what he did. For 6 months, he put pro-adult literacy messages into his soap opera. In the year following that little experiment, adult literacy enrollments went up 800%. That's the power of the media. It changed the culture from it's not cool to admit I can't read to saying it's cool to admit I can't read and I'm going to go do something about it. Now, ads often try to tell you what looks like a very positive story. So here we have an ad out of a magazine. Make the most of your natural beauty with your hairstylist and Paul Mitchell. At first glance, is that a positive message or a negative message? How many of you think positive? Yeah, positive. How many of you think negative? Your first glance, no, that's not what you notice. But let's look at it carefully. Make the most of your natural beauty. Wait a minute. If you have natural beauty, why do you have to make something of it? And wait a minute, you can't. You need a special person and a special product. You're not even able to do something about your own natural beauty. You need someone else to fix it for you, and you need to spend money on a special product. And if you do that, then you can lounge about the house looking like this, and you'll be lucky enough to find an attractive man who'll be thoughtful enough to look down your dress for you. And it's all due to this kind professional's warm heart who made something out of you, pathetic little worm. That's not even the worst thing. Got a problem? See your hairstylist. All of your problems can be solved by your outsides, but you're not even in control of that. You need someone else to help you. This, even though it initially sounds positive, this is why girls end up feeling like crap about themselves and thinking they're unattractive. Because as you read these magazines, your first look is you think that's positive, but it's undermining your confidence. It's designed to make you feel like crap so that you'll spend more money. So stop reading fashion magazines. They're entirely designed to make you feel bad. Another thing, often in the press, media violence. Is this something that we really need to be worried about? Well, let me tell you about a couple studies I've done. This is looking across, this is one of the most studied things in all of psychology, actually. There are hundreds of good studies. The most recent number I saw actually was over 2,000 studies of this. We know the answer. There are 4 main effects. The first one's called the aggressor effect. The more entertainment violence you watch, so TV, movies, video games, things like that, the more it seems natural to you that people would behave aggressively. The more you're willing to, when provoked, say something unkind back. The more you are willing to push back. The second effect is called the victim effect. The more you watch, the more scared you get. You start seeing the world as a scary place. It's sometimes called the mean world syndrome, that we start initiating more self-protective behaviors, thinking it's of higher likelihood that we'll be a victim. Kids start carrying guns to school, which ironically increases your odds of being shot. The bystander effect, the more entertainment violence you watch, the more desensitized you become. And it's not just to desensitize to other media violence. That's true. But it's also to real-world violence. So for example, a classic study, they brought college-age men into a laboratory. They randomly assigned them to watch, I think it was 20 minutes of a sports program or 20 minutes of a movie that included a simulated rape scene. And then after that, they brought in a real woman who had really been raped. And the men who saw the movie with the simulated rape were much more callous towards her, much less sympathetic, much less empathetic to her real human suffering and pain. 20 minutes of a show changed the way they interacted with a real human being. That scares me. And the fourth effect is the appetite effect. The more you do it, the more you want to watch this type of stuff. Now, there's really no debate in scientific psychology about this. The question isn't, does media violence have an effect? The question is, what type of effect are you more likely to get? Men, you're more likely to get the aggressor, bystander, and appetite. Women, you're more likely to get the victim. But everyone gets influenced by it.
We want you to understand tonight that in the eyes of children, or more importantly, in the minds of children, television is always actively teaching something. Always. To prove the point, we brought our television to the Blue Boss Daycare Center. About 10 kids, mostly 2 to 5 years old. And over 2 days, we watched them watch us.
Can you see okay?
We wanted to see if different kinds of programs would get kids to act in different kinds of ways. We had the room rigged, so while they were watching the monitor was watching them. We had cameras in plants, toy boxes, and on the other side of that one-way mirror over there. All of these cameras sent pictures to TV screens upstairs, where we sat with their parents and David Walsh, a psychologist who also runs the National Institute for Media and the Family.
It's at the age that these kids are that they're like sponges. They're learning constantly. All day long, they're learning.
On the first day, we had the kids watch Barney.
Hi, everybody.
The popular public television program with the big purple dinosaur.
Are you ready for the next letter?
The target 2 to 5 age group is drawn in near completely. They sing the songs. We found them literally marching to the beat of this drummer.
When those kids started dancing, most of the kids in the group jumped to their feet and started directly imitating what they were doing, what they were seeing.
Teresa's daughter, Hannah, is one way over the top about Barney.
She knows all their names. It's kind of like she gets to know them.
It's almost like she becomes part of that.
She becomes part of the group. Yes.
Yeah.
The kids carry the themes over after the show, playing together peacefully.
I'm proud of the way they're acting.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, I think they're acting being good. They're behaving well. Oh, just wait till you see.
On day 2, it's the Power Rangers. The popular teeny bopper superheroes doing good by beating the living daylights out of anyone doing bad. Starts out calm, even scaring some of the kids into the corner at first. But within minutes, it's become something else altogether. The kids want to be like the Power Rangers so much, they start early, taking dibs on which one best represents them. You might expect kids to act differently, given these 2 shows, but would you really expect this?
You're going to hurt each other. You better watch what you're doing.
Early on in the show, before all of the action scenes started, they were sitting in a circle, really paying attention. Once the sustained fighting started, that circle is pretty much completely disintegrated.
Oh my goodness.
I thought my son was afraid of this movie, and now he's doing the action figure motions.
Remember, here are the kids with Barney, and here are the kids with the Power Rangers.
Actually, it's more than what I expected from the other kids, but my daughter is what I expected. She's really not, she's not responding at all.
Teresa knows her daughter. She's quite suspicious about the suggestion a simple one-time exposure to a TV program could seriously influence the child she knows so well. But she found out she just had to wait a little longer.
She doesn't hit Katie. I'm really shocked.
And that's
the
kind of a
first
shock
time
to
I've
you.
ever seen that.
That sweet little Hannah was within minutes.
My scared little Hannah.
I'm shocked. I knew that they would get up and be active, but I had no idea it was going to be like this. No idea.
This is not my child today. He's not my child.
For some of the parents here, this is not so much eye-opening as it is flat-out disturbing.
How are you going to get rug burn on your face again?
I just feel very nervous that he's reacting this way and that he can react this way so easily to something that he's seen for 20 minutes.
David Walsh argues these kinds of scenes are proof positive that kids learn from television.
There are studies that show that babies as young as 14 months old will imitate what they see on a television screen. You know, so it starts early.
Now, what fascinates me about this is little Hannah.
As they were yesterday.
Why did little Hannah start punching and kicking? Did TV make her start punching and kicking?
As parents, is that even though the goal is
what did the other kids?
Our kids
Fair
are
enough.
learning because they're always.
What made the other kids start punching and kicking? TV. This is one of the rare times you can actually see the multiple layers of the effect happening. For most of the kids, it was a simple, direct, one-to-one thing. They saw it, they started copying it. That's something 3- and 4-year-olds will do. But not little Hannah. What influenced her was her peer group changed. Her culture changed. And that was powerful enough to bring everyone along with them. Now, we often talk about teenagers as if somehow you're totally influenced by your peers. I think that's actually not the interesting question. Why do your peers think that's the good idea? That's the more interesting question. Why do your peers think it might be good to smoke or good to drink or good to, whatever it is that we're concerned, adults are concerned about all these things, right? We say, oh, it's peer pressure. Well, no, where did the peers get the idea? I promise you, no peer came up with the idea of growing tobacco, drying it, processing it, infusing it with chemicals, chopping it up, wrapping it in paper, lighting it on fire, inhaling the smoke and thinking that's cool. No peer came up with that idea. Where did they get the idea it would be cool? And many times if you ask that question, you're back to the media again. So let me tell you about a couple studies I've done. This is looking at 7th and 8th graders. And we're measuring how much they play violent video games. And we find out that the kids who play more violent video games, this top one is they see the world in terms of hostility, right? They start assuming that people are out to get them, because in a violent game, you kind of practice that way of thinking. You practice being hyper alert for enemies, because they could jump out at you from anywhere. They also get in more arguments with teachers. Well, there's a true antisocial behavior. They get in more physical fights. There's a real world aggressive behavior, and they get worse grades. Now, if you're a good skeptic, and I want you to be, you're going to say, Doug, that's not necessarily about playing violent games. That might be about being a more naturally hostile and aggressive kid, because more naturally hostile, aggressive kids, they see the world in terms of hostility. They get more arguments, they get more fights, they get worse grades, and they play more violent video games. All that's true. But in this study, we measured children's personality trait hostility. And if you take the lowest naturally aggressive kids, these are least naturally aggressive kids, and they also play the lowest amount of violent video games, only 4% of them have been involved in a physical fight in the past year. That makes sense. They're not naturally aggressive, they're not playing violent games, they're not getting into fights. But if you take these same low aggressive kids, but they play a lot of violent video games, it's an almost 10 times increase in their risk of getting into a fight. How about the other extreme? What if we're talking about the kids who are normally naturally aggressive, the highest, most naturally aggressive kids? If they don't play violent games, 28% of them have been involved in a fight in the past year, and if they do, it's a bad combination. What we're seeing right here is the stacking of risk factors. No, violent video games are not going to make you a school shooter. But they add to the risk that you'll see the world in a way that would make you more likely to get into fights. Now, if you don't believe that violent video games have this effect, then why do all branches of the military train their soldiers with them? New study you might have read about in the paper just came out recently. We followed 3,000 kids for 3 years. Now, this is a complicated graph. I show it to you to prove that I'm smart. what does this mean? The I means at the beginning of the study how much violent video games they played. And down here is at the beginning of the study how much they had aggressive ways of thinking. Now we measured 3 different types of aggressive thinking. We measured that hostile attribution bias, how much you expect other people to be aggressive to you. We also measured how likely you think it is that it's okay to respond aggressively if you're provoked. And we measured how much you spend time actually thinking aggressive types of thoughts and fantasies. And if they started at the beginning of the study playing a lot of violent games, they also started having more aggressive thoughts. That makes sense. They're practicing them in the games. The S means whether they changed over the 3 years. And if they changed to play more violent games, they changed to have more aggressive thoughts. Well, aggressive thoughts matter because those predict how likely they were to be getting into fights at the end of the study in year 3. Now, what's interesting here is this actually shows why it happens. We've made a big mistake in this country thinking that the effects of, say, violent video games or violent movies or TV is like you're going to go copy these things. You're not going to copy these things. What's changing is your thoughts. You practice being vigilant for enemies. You practice saying that it's okay to respond aggressively. In fact, in games, you get rewarded for it if you're provoked. And you practice kind of these aggressive thought patterns, these fantasies. And that's what you carry along with you. When you're done playing the game, you still carry the way you think with you. And then you're here at school and you get bumped in the hallway. Maybe you used to be like you would think that was an accident. And now you don't. Now you think they meant to make you mad. And the minute you think that, you've also practiced getting up your arousal and anger. And so you do that very quickly. All this is automatic now. It's not under your conscious control. And then once you're angry, what are the odds that you'll say something unkind? They go way up. What are the odds you'd push back? They go up. And the odds that you'd get into some type of aggressive encounter have gone way up just because it's changed the way you think. It's not brain science. Oh, wait, yes, it is. But it's brain science we've known for 2,500 years. Your grandmother was a great neuroscientist. She told you practice makes perfect. Actually, we know from modern neuroscience, practice makes permanent. You practice these things over and over, it changes the way you think in a way you can't go back from. You learn it. Once you learn it, you've learned it. And because the human brain is so smart, this is how fantasy becomes reality, whether that's the fantasy of advertisements and what they're trying to sell you, or the fantasies you participate in your own, such as wishing you were prettier, wishing you were more powerful, and playing lots of violent games.
Watching your sister go through withdrawal is the last thing you expect to do. You hope she gets past it, but worry she'll relapse. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
That's 2 out of 3.
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
I thought texting friends on her cell phone was harmless.
But there she is, our daughter, topless for everyone to see.
I'm so embarrassed for her. I can't even imagine what she must be feeling. How did this happen?
What was she thinking?
Someone sent our teenage son a photo of a naked classmate. If he forwards it, it's a crime.
Our son committing a crime? I had no idea.
And he could be labeled a sex offender.
Tell your teen, sexting is a crime.
Please, listen carefully. This is for real. We will save the life of a child. There are dangerous drugs in the hands of young children in Iowa. Synthetic drugs, sometimes called fake marijuana, and bath salts. They are in our communities and schools. Talk to your children now. Get help at drugfreeiowa.org.
The brave first question.
I've heard, this is more about advertising or like films, but that when they
are filming a commercial or like an action scene, that they change the shots every 3 to 5 seconds because your attention span within that goes up if you change it. Is that true? Do they do that?
I'll defer to Dr. Gentile because that's an area he knows a little bit about.
Well, it is true. In fact, it's sometimes as low as every 1 second. It's sometimes called the MTV effect because MTV came along showing music videos with these really quick paces, and the whole culture got to where normal paced TV was boring, and we all got to where we expect that level of stimulation. And so ads definitely use those types of techniques because every time a light flickers, and every time they change the shot, the light's a little different, so it'll either dim or brighten. Anytime a light flickers, you have to look at it. It's a low brain, very basic orienting response, because if a shadow crosses you, you'd better look, it might be about to eat you. Not only that, ads will use sound effects. You notice that ads often are louder than the show. Yeah. That's done to make you look as well, because whenever there's a change in sound, you have to look. If the twig snaps, you'd better look because it might be about to eat you. And so we can't even stop these things. These are just basic brain mechanism that we have to look. And so it's a way of forcing your attention to keep coming back by keeping the flicker. And if you stand outside someone's house at night and just watch the blue light, it's constantly flicker, 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 because they know that keeps you interested. It's a really, really strange thing, and you're not aware that's why you keep looking at it, but that's a lot of why.
Is that actually called something in psychology, or would...
Well, the response is called an orienting response, that whenever there's a change in light or sound, we will reorient our attention to it. I don't know what it's called in media production, and maybe some of the cameramen here or our director would know the answer to that.
There have been studies like virtual window studies where they've tried to use two-dimensional TV projections to replicate what's outside. And early on it was done with healing in hospitals and things of that nature. But what it amounts to is simple. That if you watch TV to try to relax, to think you relax, if they put an MRI in your brain, you really don't relax. It's very much like playing with a kitten. You know, you have a little feather and the kitten chases it. Your brain does the same thing with all the images and the lights. But now if you go sit outside in the yard and you watch a tree, interestingly enough, the neural firings in your brain tend to relax you. It's a form of healing. So your brain somehow deep inside knows that it's not real, but yet it's still extremely attractive. And that was one of the things we talk about in advertising from 20, 30 years ago till today. You can change lighting, direction, emotion, drive people crazy, and in the end say, this product's great. And that could be like 1 second out of a 60-second ad. And like a week later, you'll be in the store and you'll look at it and you go, wow, that stuff's great. And you won't even know you did it. It's like brain science has been capitalized by media because we can. It's that simple. And for the most part, you're learning now that the things that we sell, you know, we're saying, God, how could people have smoked? How could they have done this? How could they have given babies Coca-Cola when they're 6 months old? Well, if it wasn't advertised, it wouldn't have happened. Because no mother in their right mind said, I'm going to give my baby Coca-Cola instead of milk.
Okay,
thanks.
Thank you.
You said that we experienced 3,000 or some around there advertisements per day. How long do those stick with you?
Well, no one of them sticks usually very much. And in fact, this is a problem in his world of advertising because they call it clutter. That you've got to do something to try to cut through the clutter. And by 3,000 advertising impressions, I mean, like, you know, you've got a bunch of different logos on your sleeve and we turn around and there are logos out. All of those are an impression. Those are an ad impression. So it's not 3,000 full, like, TV ads. And advertisers have different goals for different types of ads and different ways of getting the impression in front of you. And one of the things I didn't really talk about is different ads will be set at different ones of those goals. So some of those are just trying to do brand awareness, get you to start recognizing the name so that it seems familiar. And all it takes is about 4 times past a billboard, and we've started to do that. And once it starts feeling familiar, you start liking it a little. There's a funny thing that happens in the human brain. It's called the mere exposure effect, that we just start liking it just from being exposed to it. And then Or we could do things that are on brand preference, where we're trying to show you this brand is good for this way, or it'll make you feel this way, or it'll raise your status this way, or whatever. Third is to try to actually get you to go buy it. And then the fourth is for brand loyalty. And so different ads actually target different parts of that process, but that's the process they try to move people along. And so no one ad usually makes much difference. But in fact, they're no longer even designed to. They're now designed to work as a long campaign that just repetition, 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 to the point where you've gotten so immune to it. You think you're immune. You don't even notice you see them anymore. That's when they're really starting to have their real effect.
And this is one of the biggest battles you're witnessing now. You may not see it, but it's been a war in advertising when it comes to tracking your preferences and your behavior on the internet. That's why there's so much publicity about what the internet does. I mean, people can say, "Wow, Facebook is so nothing anymore," but they keep designing new things to keep you interested. They track your behavior. They know what you're buying. They know what you're thinking. They know where you're going, and they're actually mining your behavior to be able to come up with better places to put an ad, so you see it more often when you're most susceptible. This is the new thing that's happening with social media and the internet, and that's one thing that I recommend that you're really highly careful of, that you start looking at the best ways to filter out those messages so that you can think about things on your own terms instead of letting somebody get into your head.
Thanks.
Hi. Are funny ads or serious ads more attractive to consumers?
Funny. Serious, funny. No, sometimes an ad goes through all those manifestations. We actually, Dr. Gentile talks about ads that will take you on a roller coaster ride of funny and serious and funny and serious and funny and serious. By the end, you're exhausted, and the only time you even see what it's about is the very last couple seconds.
But I think the research on this shows that if you ask people what they like, they much prefer funny ads. If you look at what works better, it's fear. Actually seems to be the thing that works the best, because making you think there's some reason to be afraid. You will do a lot of things to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect loved ones, and so they know that's really the most powerful emotion they can try to push. But if they do it too much, you'll get too bored with it. So in fact, it's often a wide range. The funny ones are trying to get you to like the brand. The fear ones are trying to get you to feel like you need to do something. And so those are, again, on two different sides. The one is more about brand preference, and the second one is more about brand purchase. And so, in fact, different types of ads target different goals, and they target different people. If you've ever seen an ad that you go, "I don't get that," that's because it's not for you. It's for someone else, and someone else, looks at the ads that are targeting teenagers, and they go, "I don't get that," but that's because it's for you. It's not for them. And so ads are really very carefully targeted, including the emotional impact and the story and the types of images to try to hit one specific demographic they really want to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Personally, I've played video games since I was young, and I'd say about 7 or 8 was when I'd first played. I'd played Grand Theft Auto because I had an older cousin, and you were saying how it subconsciously influences your thoughts, but I've never personally played a game like Grand Theft Auto, shot cops, ran people over the car, and thought, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna go out and do that."
Right.
That seems like something I could do, because in my opinion, I would think that if anyone had those thoughts, they probably had something wrong before they played the games with their brain. So
yeah, it's not changing you to start thinking like you do in the game. That's the interesting thing. When you say get bumped in the hallway, and just because you're alert for people being unkind, you're going to react in a way that's nothing like in the game. You're not even going to think of the game at that time. It's just kind of changed. We hear people talk about attitudes and beliefs and perceptual biases. We measure all of these things as psychologists. These are things that you actually aren't cognitively thinking. These are that other route that's just automatic. One of the things violent games are fantastic at is changing how well you actually can perceive things in the world. It actually trains your brain in a way that you start noticing tiny differences way out at the periphery, because you constantly have to be scanning because something could jump out at you from anywhere. But you don't think you're learning that at the time, but it does change the way you just perceive the world, and you start noticing things differently. But it's not a conscious thought. It's not a conscious process. And so that's part of what's happening here. And you're right. The kids who do say, oh, I could do this or I could try this, those kids do have other things, other problems going on. And so what we're finding is that these games are not going to go make you do crimes. No one is saying that. Only the newspapers say that, but none of the researchers say that. The researchers say what they do is they make you more willing when somebody annoys you to not just let it roll off your back. You get angrier a little faster just because you practiced, in fact, you're better at violent games if you can bring up that aggression. If you can bring up those aggressive feelings, that's actually helps you play the game better. And you practice that, and so then when you get, bumped or someone says something, that's annoying or someone actually insults you, it just becomes a little more automatic that you wouldn't think of a new way. If someone insults you, what do? My guess is you're not thinking, ask for more information.
Yeah.
My guess is you're not thinking, find a third person to mediate. But those would actually be very valid responses. But what you practice in a violent game is provocation, retaliate, and we kind of learn these scripts. And then when you walk around in the world, you get provoked. What comes to mind first is usually the thing we do. And what comes to mind first is the thing we've practiced the most. And so it's not like you're going to want to shoot them. It's just you're used to being in this kind of script that if someone provokes you, you should defend yourself. And then that can lead to higher likelihood of getting into a verbal, aggressive encounter, or even maybe a physically aggressive encounter, although those are even rare.
One of the things that's the biggest threat to advertisers trying to get you to buy and do their stuff are structured time with family, friends, where you really respect people's feelings and values. One of the things that video games and the internet and social media have done is allowed us to put people into these little shells that are no longer social. They're slightly separated, so you can feel a little bit more loneliness or a little bit more, less fulfilled. We know it. We know that people are less happy doing that, and they're very addictive. And you really want. I played video games part of my life too, and they get you really enraptured. But they take you away from quality time with people, with family, with friends, and things like that. Now that makes you more susceptible, like that little zebra that gets culled out of the pack, for us to sell you stuff. So it's not that you can't enjoy things on the internet and play some games, but you have to understand that you're sacrificing time that might be playing ball with your buddies or fishing or hunting or hanging around with your parents, because there isn't that much time left in the day when you look at it. And if you use a lot of it doing something like a game, there will be something you will pay for. It may not make you crazy, it may not make you super violent, but it's just those little things that over the course of a life become really important. Now, from a marketer's point of view, we sort of like it if you're slightly disillusioned and away from all that protection, because then we can get you to be more impulsive and do stuff that benefits what we're trying to buy.
And the other bigger picture about this is we only talk about, say, violent video games in this country when there's been some terrible tragedy, like a school shooting. That's the wrong time to talk about, because it's got nothing to do with those. What it's got to do with is playground level aggression. The way you guys are actually mean to each other. You're sarcastic with each other. You all probably think that that's funny. You've been trained that by television, that situation comedies, they all sit there insulting each other and then there's a laugh track. It's actually not funny. When someone's sarcastic to you, even though if you know it's just a joke, it kind of still deep down it cuts a little. And that's kind of the thing, is that it's training us to just be a little more desensitized towards other people's feelings, and then we're more willing to think we're right. We're more willing to say the unkind thing, which to the other person they think is an overreaction. And so then they say something back and you think that's an overreaction, and so it can escalate quickly. It's not about hauling off and punching someone, because most of you are probably never going to do that. It's more about this other lower level of aggression, the way people really are aggressive. And the only way you get to serious aggression, like shootings, is you have to have a whole lot of risk factors. Those kids had a lot of things go wrong. They had uninvolved parents, they had been bullied for years, they had psychiatric illnesses. Yes, they also consumed a lot of violent video games, but that's not the thing that did it. It's kind of every one of these things that's going wrong, and nothing very much going right for those kids. That's when you get, that's when the risk goes up for serious aggression. But most of you, I hope, have a lot of protective factors and very few risk factors, and that means you can play a lot of violent video games and you're never going to hit anyone. But that doesn't mean it's having no effect. It's still changing some of your underlying attitudes and ways you see the world in a way that might make you a little less easy to get along with down the road.
Thank you.
Yep.
So if you're like watching a TV show or a video game, does seeing someone get killed have a greater effect than like just getting hit or punched?
I'm going to answer that one really quickly with something I do a lot with parents. I once created a wager. I said, can anybody get up on stage and get everybody to agree on one thing? And who wants to volunteer for that duty? That's not easy to do, is it? But I'll do one thing. Can we all agree that killing is bad? Killing is a bad thing. It shouldn't happen. We don't like that in a civilized society. We don't like that in a society that cares for itself. Yet, we talked about practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. For parents, you can imagine how scary it is in a world where we grew up strongly believing that killing is a bad thing, and yet we have a lot of children that are on video games practicing killing over and over and over again. Now, that doesn't make you a killer, but yet it just seems ironic that with all the things we're trying to do in this world, all the things we're trying to solve and make good, that we'd even be, and I've done it, but why would we even promote that kind of an activity? Because even in play, killing should not be an ideal to strive for.
Now, in terms of the psychological impact, it's actually a really complicated question to answer. It depends partly on what the outcome is you care about. So do you care about which desensitizes more? Well, then the murder desensitizes more than the punching. But how it's portrayed matters too. If it's shown with, if it's glamorized, so it's shown without blood, or if it's shown as humorous, then that actually changes the psychological impact. If you focus a lot on the suffering of the victim. So this is why some violent things actually are really positive for people, because there's nothing inherently wrong with seeing an act of violence if what you learn from it is the truth about violence, which is that it destroys lives forever. And so movies like Schindler's List, where you actually see the horror, that comes with war, no one walks away from those going, yay, let's go to war. Everyone comes away horrified. So how it's portrayed matters a lot. And then, do you care about the emotional effects? Do you care about the cognitive effects? Do you care about the behavioral effects? Do you care about the physiological effect? Each of those has a different effect on each of those. So it's a good question, partly because it's so hard to answer, unfortunately. So the more blood there is, the more it desensitizes quickly. But it doesn't seem to matter in terms of things like how much you're willing to copy it. That in fact the easier thing to copy is the thing that gets copied more. So in that case, hitting actually would have a bigger behavioral effect than the killing. But the blood of the killing would desensitize more than the hitting would. That's the best I can do to try to make it as clean an answer without being inaccurate.
But it's also a good answer for why we think the web and technology is a beautiful thing. Because if you see the videos of some of the atrocities, say in Sudan and places like that where children are starving to death and there's all kinds of violence, and it prompts you to do something good or to provide food for those that need food, now you've learned something positive from that experience. But if all you want to do is watch that on video because you just love seeing it, then you start questioning whether that's a good idea. So the fact that we've connected the whole world with the ability to be able to not only discern the good things or things we want, but also problems that we need to work on, makes the opportunity you have as our growing adult population, it gives you the opportunity to act on a lot more information than either one of us had to make this a better world. So in that way, that exposure to violence can be a stark reminder that there's a lot of work we have to do, and it's your job as you grow up and your peers to do that. We're going to be 6 feet under while you're doing most of your work, and I wish you well.
Well, maybe with any luck, one of them will have killed us.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Is there a way to prevent media from influencing you as much?
Is there a way to prevent media from influencing you as much? Well, there is, and it's you actually have to consume a lot less. That's knowing these tricks. We thought that would help. That now that you know the tricks, it actually inoculates you. It turns out it doesn't really. I know all the tricks that advertisers use. I sit there, I watch television, I can name them. I can sit there saying exactly what trick they're using, and I know how they all work, and it still works on me. So knowing may help, but it doesn't help as much as we want. So really, being selective, picking things that are in line with your values, picking things that you think you really care about watching, and not just turning things on to see if it's on. We know the answer. There's always something on. Pick the things that you care about to watch, or the games you care about to play, and then turn it off after that. And that's probably the best way. Find a way to skip as many ads as possible. Find a way to choose content that you think is actually makes you feel better after watching or playing.
You guys have been a great audience. If anybody has questions, they come by afterwards. Thank you.
I think some of the exciting things I took from the presentation was realizing how much advertising does get into our heads when we don't realize it. Like me personally, I do watch a lot of TV and do go on the internet a lot. And I guess I didn't realize how much it was really getting to me out of like the corner of my eye. So it was really interesting to actually see the statistics of how it really does get into your head.
There was a lot of things that stood out for me, and there are some things that I didn't quite knew about it. So I'm easy to be tricked at. So the stuff that you guys did actually got me. But
I learned that media does have a larger effect than I thought it did on us. And I realized that a lot of it is more subconscious than anything, and we can't really control it unless we limit our time using anything that it can get to us through.
We were kind of sitting and really thinking, wow, this is a great opportunity for students to kind of think critically about things, but also just to sort of open up our own eyes about technology is advancing so quickly, and there's so many things that we didn't necessarily know about, the way it impacts our everyday life. I certainly hadn't thought about.
Yeah, I think that by seeing and by the examples that were set forth today, that they see that it's about my choice, as you know, as much as it is maybe my parents influencing me, my decisions, but they're taking a lot more responsibility and ownership. And no matter how great of a parenting job we do, a lot of parents may not have the skill set their kids do when it comes to using social media and things.
The use of technology is an important part of the Iowa core, and so being able to manage that effectively and being able to discern media and what it's really trying to tell you, on either a conscious or maybe subconscious level, that's an important skill for our students to have.